I never imagined that the place where I had poured 18 years of my life, my energy, my late nights, my family time, even my health, would one day turn against me so viciously. Back then, I was head of operations at a mid-sized tech company called Stratos Edge Solutions. Not a massive Silicon Valley giant, but a powerful regional player with real ambition. When I first joined, we were a team of just 8 people crammed into a dusty office above a laundromat. I still remember the smell of detergent in the morning meetings. I was employee number 5. There was no glamour, no prestige. Just a few nerds with dreams bigger than their bank accounts. But we worked hard. We pushed. And slowly, Stratos Edge started to grow. First 20 employees, then 50, then 200. By the time I became head of operations, we had a sleek glass building downtown, with our name flashing proudly on the 10th floor. I wasn't just another manager. I was one of the builders. I had helped craft the processes, the partnerships, the very culture that people now bragged about on LinkedIn. When our CEO, Paul Reynolds, talked about the founding spirit of Stratos Edge, he was really talking about me and 2 others. But of course, as money started flowing in, so did new faces. Faces who didn't know, and didn't care, about the late nights, the personal sacrifices, the years we spent surviving on instant ramen and hope. A new wave of executives arrived, hired by our shiny new board of directors. Suits who had never been there for the hard times. And with them came a slow, poisonous shift in culture. I noticed it first during a meeting about streamlining operations. One of the new VPs, a guy named Logan Hart who wore suits so tight he looked like a sausage, started questioning everything I suggested. Every plan I brought forward was too traditional. Every budget proposal was bloated. Every strategy was outdated. At first, I thought it was just a clash of styles. After all, I was old school. I believed in slow, steady, methodical growth. They wanted fast, flashy, risky. But it wasn't just Logan. Over the next few months, I started noticing whispers when I entered rooms. Meetings where I suddenly wasn't invited. Decisions made without consulting me, in areas that were explicitly my responsibility. The writing was on the wall. They wanted me out. But what they didn't know, what none of them ever bothered to check, was that I wasn't just head of operations. I was also a major silent shareholder. A legacy of those early ramen days, when the company had no cash and paid me in stock options instead of salary. Those forgotten shares had accumulated, split, and grown. To the point where, quietly, without fanfare, I had become the majority stakeholder of Stratos Edge Solutions. 51%. I owned 51% of the company they thought they controlled. But I said nothing. I smiled. I nodded. I kept attending meetings. I let them dig their own graves. Until the day they decided to fire me. What? In front of the entire company. On Zoom. The signs were subtle at first. Tiny cracks in the foundation I had. It began with calendar invites. Meetings about strategic. I'd find out about decisions after they were made. Budget reallocations. New hires. When I confronted Logan. I knew it wasn't a glitch. It was intent. Next came the performance reviews. Despite leading my department to record efficiency levels, numbers that were praised by the board just months before, my new review read, needs to adapt to the evolving culture. Adapting to culture. Corporate code 4, you're not one of us anymore. Even the tone around the office changed. People lied. It was clear that leadership had launched a whisper campaign, painting me as outdated. A dinosaur. The final nail came during an executive meeting when Logan pitched a massive restructuring plan. He wanted to flatten the hierarchy, he said. Make the company. His proposal effectively dissolved my entire department. I sat there staring at the screen watching Paul, the CEO, the man I'd stood beside through 1,000 battles, nod along like a bobblehead. No one looked at me. Not once. It was already decided. They were just going through the motions to make it official. That night, I went home and stared at the dusty box in my closet. The one marked Founders Shares, Do Not Lose. I hadn't thought about it in years. Back when the company was barely breathing, we had signed agreements offering slices of ownership to those who had bled for the dream. Mine had been tiny back then, but after years of splits, reinvestments, and forgotten contracts, it had grown. I did some quick calculations. When the last funding round closed, no one bothered to buy me out. The new investors were too busy chasing the next shiny thing. The result? I now controlled 51% of Stratos Edge Solutions. I sat there in my dark living room laughing quietly. They thought they were pushing me out. But they were about to learn the hard way what happens when you try to bury someone who's still holding the keys to the kingdom. It happened on a Thursday morning. The calendar invite popped up late the night before. Company-wide strategy meeting, mandatory attendance. 8:30 a.m. sharp. Zoom link attached. No agenda listed. That should have been the first red flag. In all my years with Stratos Edge, I had never seen a mandatory meeting thrown together so hastily and so vaguely. I showed up early anyway. Habit. Respect. Or maybe curiosity. As I logged in, I saw the familiar checkerboard of faces popping onto the screen. Sales, marketing, engineering, customer success. Everyone was there. Over 200 employees. All eyes on the little rectangles. At the top of the grid sat Paul Reynolds, our CEO, flanked by Logan Hart and a couple of board members I'd only ever seen in passing. Paul cleared his throat dramatically. The room, if you could call a Zoom meeting a room, fell silent. "Good morning, everyone," he began, voice syrupy and serious. "We're here today to discuss a critical step in Stratos Edge's evolution." I leaned back in my chair, arms crossed, waiting for the circus to begin. Paul continued. "As part of our strategy to modernize and adapt to current market demands, we have decided to restructure certain leadership roles." He smiled. The kind of smile you use when you're about to stab someone politely. And then he said my name. Clear as day. Effective immediately, my name will be stepping down from his position as head of operations. I blinked. Stepping down? I hadn't agreed to step down. I hadn't even been consulted. The chat window exploded with confusion. Wait, what? OMG. WTF is going on? But Paul wasn't done. He continued in that rehearsed plastic tone. "We thank him for his years of service and dedication, but we believe that new leadership is needed to guide Stratos Edge into its next chapter." Then Logan chimed in, twisting the knife. "We're excited to announce a dynamic new operations team that will bring fresh energy and ideas to our company culture." Dynamic new team? Fresh energy? They were replacing me with a group of junior managers Logan had handpicked. People who barely knew which end of the table the coffee machine was on. And they did it live in front of everyone. No private conversation. No courtesy. No dignity. Just public execution, corporate style. I sat there for a long moment. Silent. Expressionless. I could feel 200 sets of eyes watching me, waiting for my reaction. Some looked uncomfortable. Some curious. Some amused. They wanted me to break. To rant. To rage. To humiliate myself further by lashing out. Instead, I clicked the raise hand button calmly. Paul hesitated, then nodded. "Yes. My name?" I unmuted my mic. "Thank you, Paul. Logan. Everyone. I appreciate the clarity today." I let my words hang in the air for a beat. Then I added, with a small smile. "Just a small correction, though, before you proceed with any further restructuring." Paul blinked. Logan frowned. "You might want to double-check the company's ownership records," I said quietly, "before you make decisions about leadership." Silence. Debt-heavy silence. Faces froze. Eyes widened. Some employees leaned closer to their screens, sensing something seismic. I watched Paul's face drain of color. Logan's smug smirk twitched. One of the board members started whispering furiously off-screen to someone. I muted my mic, sat back, and smiled. The trap had been sprung. For a few seconds, the meeting was frozen in time. No one spoke. No one moved. It was as if the very air around them had turned thick and heavy. Paul cleared his throat, but the sound came out dry and broken. He glanced nervously to his left, off camera, probably looking for help. "I'm not sure I understand what you're implying. My name?" he said, forcing a laugh that fooled no one. I leaned forward slightly, my face filling my Zoom window. Not angry. Not defensive. Just composed. Calm. Deadly calm. "What I'm saying, Paul," I said evenly, "is that as of last quarter's filings, I hold 51% of Stratos Edge Solutions voting shares." Another beat of silence. And then chaos. Private messages started pinging across screens. Board members yelling at assistants off mic. Logan frantically typing into his phone, jaw clenched. The chat blew up again. "Is this real? OMG, no way. 51%? How?" I didn't need to read the messages. I could feel the panic radiating through the fiber optics. You see, while they were busy playing political games, promoting favorites, slashing departments, and crafting fake narratives, I had been preparing. Quietly. Patiently. Thoroughly. I had anticipated something like this. The disrespect. The betrayal. The greed. It's practically baked into the corporate world. Years ago, when Stratos Edge needed survival money, I didn't cash out like the others. I doubled down. Stock options, private buybacks, deferred bonuses converted into equity. While they bragged about salaries and cars, I collected shares. Slowly. Methodically. Until I crossed the magic threshold. Until the board needed my vote to make any major changes. And didn't even realize it. And now here they were. Caught live on a company-wide Zoom call, trying to fire the man who actually owned the company. Paul stammered. Well, that's certainly significant. Perhaps we should discuss this privately offline? Offline? Now they wanted discretion? After humiliating me in front of 200 employees? Not a chance. No, Paul, I said, my voice still calm. This conversation started here. It will end here. I reached down to my keyboard. Pulled up the document I had prepared months ago, just in case. A formal motion to remove Logan Hart and dissolve the newly proposed executive team, effective immediately. I shared my screen. The legal header flashed across everyone's computers. The reactions were immediate. Gasp. Slack-jawed disbelief. A few suppressed laughs from the employees who knew exactly what had been happening behind the scenes. And then I said the words I had been waiting to say for months. As the majority shareholder, I hereby move to exercise my authority under Section 7B of the Stratos Edge Solutions Corporate Charter. Effective immediately, Logan Hart is terminated. Furthermore, all decisions made by the unauthorized dynamic team are null and void. Stratos Edge will return to its founding operational structure, until further notice. Logan stood up in his little Zoom window, shouting something unintelligible. His mic was muted. Nobody unmuted him. Paul looked like he was about to faint. As for the board, they were already scrambling, making calls, desperately flipping through digital copies of contracts they should have read a long time ago. I sat there, still smiling, still silent. I didn't need to gloat. Reality was doing the gloating for me. In the weeks that followed, I could have celebrated loudly. I could have paraded my victory across social media. I could have called every news outlet and made an example of them all. But I didn't. Because true victory doesn't need to shout. It simply stands. It endures. It speaks for itself. The first thing I did was rebuild. Not just the company, but its soul. I reopened the doors to the people who had been silenced. The hardworking engineers, project managers, customer success agents, the real lifeblood of Stratos Edge. I organized a company-wide listening session. No scripts. No executives filtering questions. No fear. Everyone had a voice. For 5 straight hours, employees spoke. They vented. They cried. They laughed. They shared dreams that had been buried under months of fear and toxicity. And I listened. Really listened. That night, I sat alone in my office, the same office Logan had planned to occupy after my departure, and wrote the new mission statement of Stratos Edge by hand. We are not a company. We are a promise. To never forget who we are. To never betray the ones who built us. To never sell our soul for short-term gain. It wasn't marketing fluff. It wasn't a PR move. It was a declaration of war against everything that had almost destroyed us. Financially, the company rebounded faster than anyone expected. Within 6 months, revenue grew by 28%. Employee retention rose by 40%. Customer satisfaction surveys hit record highs. Without the parasites bleeding us dry, Stratos Edge flourished. Investors who had once doubted me suddenly flooded my inbox with offers. Consultants begged for contracts. And the press? They started to notice. They wrote glowing articles about the unexpected turnaround of Stratos Edge Solutions, calling it one of the most stunning reversals in recent corporate history. Funny how success silences doubters. But none of that mattered as much to me as a single Slack message I received from an entry-level engineer one afternoon. Thank you for not giving up on us. I sat there staring at that message for a long time. Because that, not the money, not the titles, not the headlines, that was the real victory. I wasn't just the owner. I wasn't just the man they tried and failed to bury. I was the living proof that you can take everything from a builder except his ability to rebuild. If there's one thing life will teach you, painfully, inevitably, it's this. The people who smile at you today can be the ones who betray you tomorrow. Success attracts loyalty, yes. But it also attracts greed, envy, and ambition without soul. They will come dressed as colleagues, as friends, sometimes even as family. They will applaud when you win. They will pretend to cheer for you. And when you're not looking, they will sharpen their knives. But here's the truth they never understand. You can't destroy someone who's already built themselves once from nothing. They thought taking my title would end me. They thought humiliating me publicly would break me. They thought freezing me out would erase my value. But real value doesn't sit in titles or corner offices or LinkedIn profiles. Real value sits in your hands, in your heart, in your mind, in the things you've built, rebuilt, and built again. Ownership of your destiny isn't something you announce. It's something you prove when they try to steal it from you, and you refuse to let it go. Today I walk through the halls of Stratos Edge with pride. Not because I won. Not because they lost. But because I stood tall, when every pressure told me to kneel. Because I remembered who I was, when everyone else forgot. Because I chose resilience over revenge. Dignity over drama. Building over burning. And if you're ever betrayed, if you're ever humiliated, sidelined, or cast out by people who forgot your worth, remember this. You don't owe them rage. You don't owe them revenge. You owe yourself a future they can't touch. Keep building. Keep rising. Keep standing. Because the greatest revenge is simply to endure and to rise higher than they ever imagined. If you enjoyed this story of resilience and redemption, don't forget to smash that like button, subscribe for more powerful true stories, and comment, stand tall, if you believe no betrayal can stop true strength.